On the night of the 5th of June, 2026, internet and mobile networks across Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir were abruptly severed. The illegally occupied territory went completely dark. Under the cover of this digital blackout, an occupying force mobilized. The Inspector General of Police for POJK, Liaquat Ali Malik, officially requisitioned 14,000 mainland security personnel from Islamabad, Frontier Constabulary, Pakistan Rangers, Sindh Police. 40% of them were armed with live ammunition. Their target was not a foreign military. Their target was an unarmed civilian population. Over the next 96 hours, the region of Rawalakot turned into a killing field. Pakistani administration admits to 11 deaths. Local civil society groups confirm over 30 civilians killed and more than 300 severely injured. Hospitals were locked down and funerals were obstructed. Historically, the global discourse on Jammu and Kashmir has been hijacked by a specific state-sponsored narrative from Islamabad. Today, that narrative has completely collapsed. The people living under Pakistani occupation are in an open, violent rebellion against the state. Taking inputs from a report titled "The Aggressor Who Never Left," published by the Jammu Kashmir Study Center, we audited the timeline, the historical documents, and the geopolitical fallout of the June 2026 crisis. We are going to show you exactly how an occupation sustains itself and how it eventually shatters. Welcome to the Indian Matrix. To understand the bloodshed of June 2026, you have to look at the trigger. For months, a massive civil society umbrella group called the Jammu Kashmir Joint Awami Action Committee, or JAAC, had been holding peaceful protests. These were traders, lawyers, students, and teachers. They were demanding basic justice and human rights. On the 5th of June 2026, the Pakistani state panicked. The POJK Home Department formally banned JAAC under the Anti-Terrorism Act. Hours later, the state executed a targeted hit. Around midnight, near the Barmang Bridge in Rawalakot, Pakistani security forces intercepted a vehicle carrying JAAC leadership. They opened fire, calling it an exchange of fire. A prominent civil society activist, Shahzeb Habib, was shot dead. The authorities then withheld his body at a military hospital, attempting to suppress the public reaction. They failed, and the assassination ignited the entire territory. By June 8, a comprehensive territory-wide shutdown was in effect. Muzaffarabad, Mirpur, Kotli, Bagh, every major district was paralyzed.
The Pakistan-occupied Kashmir is on the boil again.
The military response was ruthless, firing live ammunition directly into gatherings of unarmed civilians and mourners outside the hospital. But the locals fought back, breaking the psychological barrier of fear. In the town of Mang, enraged protesters captured Pakistani military personnel. They stripped them of their uniforms and auctioned those uniforms in the main town square. Videos of this humiliation leaked out despite the internet ban. It was the most visceral rejection of the Pakistani military occupation in 79 years. Even the local POJK police began refusing orders to shoot their own people. Sub-Inspector Sardar Inayat, a local officer, was reportedly executed by the Pakistan Army for expressly refusing to use deadly force against the protesters. The command structure was fracturing. But why was JAAC protesting in the first place? The Pakistani establishment tries to frame every uprising as a foreign conspiracy. The reality is rather based on human rights, dignity, and demand for livelihood. POJK is treated exclusively as a resource colony for mainland Pakistan. The region produces massive amounts of hydroelectric power through facilities like the Mangla Dam and the Kishanganga project. This electricity powers the cities of Punjab and Sindh. Yet, the locals in POJK suffer from chronic load shedding and are forced to pay extortionate electricity tariffs. They are buying back their own stolen resources at a premium. The Pakistani state brutalizes women, children, and anybody who dares to speak up with impunity. In October 2025, after a massive territory-wide strike, the Pakistani federal government signed a formal 38-point agreement with JAAC. They promised electricity at production cost, subsidized wheat, and an end to elite privileges. By January 2026, the deadline had expired. Pakistan reneged on the deal. More importantly, the government refused to touch the core political demand, the abolition of the 12 refugee seats in the POJK assembly. These 12 seats are a structural mechanism of control. They are reserved for so-called refugees residing in mainland Pakistan. Local POJK residents cannot contest them. The Pakistani establishment uses these puppet seats to rig the assembly, ensuring that mainland political parties like the PMLN or PPP can always form the government in POJK, completely disregarding the actual popular vote. When JAAC demanded the end of this electoral engineering, Pakistan labeled them terrorists. The brutality of June 2026 shocked the international community. But for historians, it was a precise repetition of a very old playbook. In October 1947, the Pakistan Army launched a military invasion of the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir. Following Maharaja Hari Singh's legal signing of the Instrument of Accession, the territory became a sovereign part of India. The United Nations repeatedly ordered Pakistan to vacate the occupied territories. Pakistan defied the UN and entrenched its military occupation. That occupation was built on massacres. In 1947, the invading forces murdered roughly 20,000 civilians in Mirpur alone, abducting 5,000 women and entirely erasing the native population that had lived there for generations. When the local Sudhan community launched the Poonch uprising in 1955, demanding democratic rights, the Pakistan Army deployed the Punjab Constabulary to crush it. Villages were burned as collective punishment. The violence evolved from massacres to targeted, systematic erasure. According to documentation presented at the UN Human Rights Council in October 2025, there are over 6,500 people who have been victims of enforced disappearances in POJK over the last 2 decades. Journalists, authors, and political activists who question the exploitation of their land were abducted. Sardar Arif Shahid, chairman of the All Parties National Alliance, campaigned against the diversion of natural resources. In 2013, an assassin stepped out of a vehicle in Rawalpindi, shot him 4 times, and vanished. No Pakistani media reported it, no arrests were ever made. The blackout in Rawalakot is the exact same strategy. Silence the leaders, shut down the communications, and let the military do its work in the dark. When the guns fired in Rawalakot, the world's reaction exposed the absolute hypocrisy of the global diplomatic order. Pakistan is one of the most vocal members of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, the OIC. Islamabad uses the OIC to constantly lecture the world on Kashmir. Yet, when the Pakistan Army gunned down unarmed Muslims in POJK, the OIC issued 0 statements. The entire 57-member bloc chose strategic alignment with the Pakistani military over the lives of the occupied population. But while the OIC remained silent, a significant diplomatic reaction emerged from the West, specifically from the United Kingdom. Over 50 British parliamentarians condemned the blackout and the killings, demanding diplomatic intervention. Why the UK? Because of demographics. 70% of Britain's Pakistani community traces its roots to the Mirpur region of POJK. These families are the descendants of those forcibly displaced in 1967 when Pakistan built the Mangla Dam, submerging their ancestral cities to power the national grid. The protests we see in Bradford and London today are being led by a diaspora that has never forgotten that their homeland was sacrificed for Pakistan's erratic policy decision. New Delhi shifted its posture from factual observation to aggressive condemnation. The Ministry of External Affairs explicitly labelled the events natural consequence of Pakistan's oppressive approach and systemic plundering of resources. India demanded international accountability, reaffirming that POJK remains sovereign Indian territory under illegal occupation. The state of Pakistan is currently executing a balancing act it can no longer sustain. It is bankrupt economically, and now it is completely bankrupt ideologically. The June 2026 uprising in Rawalakot destroyed the foundational myth of the Pakistani state, the idea that it acts as the savior of the Kashmiri people. The citizens of POJK have identified the true colonizer. They are fighting back against resource extraction, demographic engineering, and military brutality. A state cannot bomb a population into loving it. The aggressor never left the territory, but the occupied have finally broken their silence. If you want to read the full documented timeline of the atrocities in POJK, click the attached link to read the in-depth research on our Substack. Share this video to break the blackout. For more such empirical studies, stay tuned to the Indian Matrix.